Pilates instructors are going to have to change how they do their taxes as of April 2026. Making tax digital is coming, and today we're going to give you the rundown of what that means and how that's going to affect your taxes. Don't worry if you're freaked out by the idea of me saying MTD. You're like, Lauren, what is that? We are going to cover it. I'm actually someone who finds accounting software super stressful. For me, it actually feels quite limiting, as I've always done my taxes and my bookkeeping on Excel. But now the government is requiring sole traders to go digital. MTD is called Making Tax Digital. I was kind of annoyed at this to start, but alas, I've accepted it. And in true Lauren style, I have done the deep dive and subscribed to multiple free trials of different accounting softwares. And there are actually a couple of them that aren't as bad as the others. And for me, there was actually a clear winner of which one makes most sense specifically for people working as Pilates instructors. So we're going to first cover the changes, and then I'm going to take you through 4 different accounting softwares that could work for you. And then I'm going to let you know my favorite and why I think it's best for us as Pilates instructors. This is not a sponsored video. So the one that I'm saying I think is genuinely because after having tried, it fits us best as instructors and our needs. So let's get started. So from April 2026, the way self-employed people report their tax in the UK is changing. If you're a Pilates instructor or a sole trader, this will affect how you submit your tax return and how often you need to report your income. If the concept of taxes is completely new for you, I do actually have a separate video on that where I categorize with you your income, your expenditures, what it means to be a sole trader. So you can have a look at that. The difference that is coming with making tax digital is actually how you submit it. There aren't actually changes to your taxes themselves, thank God. Making tax digital, or as it's often referred to, MTD, is the government's plan to move the UK tax system fully online and fully digital. Instead of one tax return a year, so your self-assessment, you'll keep digital records and send updates to HMRC through software. So rather than keeping spreadsheets or having boxes of receipts and then panicking once a year to submit it all, HMRC wants to track all of this digitally, including your receipts, and submit updates during the year. So simply put, tax reporting becomes more frequent and software-based. The idea that HMRC has is that it's going to reduce mistakes. They estimate that billions of pounds of tax is lost in errors every year because of manual reporting. You want my behind the scenes opinion? I don't think they're errors. I'm just saying. They want to modernize the tax system. This one's a little bit more fair play. A lot of countries are already doing it digitally anyway, so they're just trying to play catch up. And then improving tax accuracy. HMRC wants people to see their tax position throughout the year rather than one big quote unquote surprise bill. If you are accounting properly, you should be putting aside money every month for tax. But unfortunately, the state of financial education and literacy in this country is zero. So a lot of people get to the end of the year and have nothing. And that's going to cause then further financial problems for individuals and businesses to have to scrape together a tax bill. So MTD isn't going to apply to everyone. There are still thresholds. So from April 2026, the MTD requirement only applies to you if your yearly income exceeds £50,000 a year. But if you're thinking, oh, that's fine, I don't earn 50k, I don't need to worry. You do, because as of April 2027, the threshold will be 30k. And this is actually gross income, not profit. So if all of your income before expenditures is 30k, 50k, etc., that's the money we're looking at, not after you've made all your deductions. So 30k for a Pilates instructor before deductions, you're going to be on that threshold for sure. So what does this actually mean? It means that you're going to have to keep digital records. So how the softwares work is they connect to your bank and everything gets uploaded manually. You then, instead of categorizing in a cell on Excel, you just click a sort of drop-down menu and categorize it through this software. When you make a purchase, a lot of the time it will actually say where it's from. So a good example is TfL. It always says that the money is from TfL. But a lot of other purchases that they work through different card issuers, you don't know what it is. You are going to need to take a photo of your receipt and attach it to the purchase. A little bit more faff in the beginning than just stuffing it in your pocket or taking a photo. But over time, I think that is actually going to be easier and less stressful because I don't know about you, but I lose receipts. And also with email receipts and things like that, It just makes them a little bit easier to categorize. So I'm on board with the receipts here with the software. Also with the categorization, it will automatically start to categorize for you, and you can set it to different categorizations. So say every month you've got a subscription to a class planning app, you only have to categorize that once. And then if you set it to automatically set as a business expense, then every month it will just automatically categorize that for you. So ultimately it should save time in the long run, even if it's a little bit more faff to kind of set all that up in the short term. Your invoices can also be submitted through these softwares to keep track of the income. And the other change, of course, is the quarterly tax reports. So this is essentially mini self-assessments every 3 months, so that you don't get lost behind on your tax payments and bills. This, according to HMRC, should be around April to June, July to September, October to December, and January to March. You will still have your final self-assessment at the end of the year, which is where you will pay your tax bill. But I think the idea for HMRC is that people are going to see it throughout the year by forcing us to submit it 4 times a year instead of just once. The 4 software comparisons that we're going to run down into, you've got FreeAgent, we've got Xero, QuickBooks, and Coconut. There are many, many more, but these are the ones I've kind of narrowed it down to that are worth comparing. They all offer slightly different things, but all of them can be relevant for us as sole traders and Pilates instructors. And depending what you're doing and what you favor, each one of these might offer you something different. So we'll start off with QuickBooks because this is the one that I think most people have heard of and probably most people use. Now, QuickBooks was actually the one I used before, and I didn't have the best time with it. Whilst they were super helpful setting it up, you get a free call to help you set up your QuickBooks. It's starting at about £10 a month, but there's also the first 6 months are like £1. So for your first year, it's actually, if you do the math, very, very cheap, like £70, I would say. It has all the features you need as a sole trader. So it tracks your expenses. It lets you send invoices. What I found faffy with it was I didn't particularly like the invoicing system. I still had to do it quite manually considering it was an app. And what I also didn't like about it was the interface. I just found it a little bit too much for what I needed. In this case, there were actually too many features. When you think about it as Pilates instructors, our needs are pretty simple. We don't need to be paying for a venue. We only need to submit a few invoices a month, depending what you're doing. But for me, monthly, I submit about 4 invoices. And I need something that categorizes my expenses for me. All right, so moving on to Xero. This is another one that probably a lot of people have heard for. It's quite popular. And I've got on my little list that it's actually widely used by accountants. I don't know if that's true. What I found with Xero is if you are a small business, limited company, and if you're an instructor who has a lot of different things going on, maybe you're selling product, maybe you even have a studio yourself or you're thinking about it, it's much better suited for that kind of thing. As a sole trader with minimal needs, I did find it a little bit unnecessarily complicated, and it does actually advertise itself that it's great for small businesses. That does not mean that you cannot use it if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of it or set yourself up for later because, for example, you want to have a studio later or you want to branch out. Absolutely not a problem. Yeah, we're going to have a little look at the interface now.
So as you can see at the top already, you can see things like purchasing and reporting. This is the invoice section, so it'll list your invoices here. And then if we go down to the expenses, I'm just going to show you how that looks. Okay. So you connect it to an app and then all your expenses get kind of tracked on your phone. And you would set that up just by connecting it to your bank card. All right. And then here's your reporting. So as you can see, it's got loads of different kind of features that we don't necessarily need to use here. Your balance sheet is where you'd see your ingoings versus your outgoings. Like on some of the other apps, for example, it is far more just there in front of you rather than you having to search it. And then you've got your tax. Your contacts is who you're going to be invoicing. So as I said before, you know, you're probably not going to have loads unless you're doing loads of private clients. So it's just a little bit unnecessary for us.
Number 3 is FreeAgent. Again, quite heard of, maybe not as widely heard of as the previous 2. This is actually, spoiler alert, my favorite one of all of them and the one I will be using with my taxes. And it is very, very good for freelancers. It does offer that it does specifically say that it is good for freelancers rather than just sole traders. A sole trader can be quite broad. It can be someone who charges by the day. It can be someone who's shifting product. It can be someone who works project-based and so on. But because we're working billable hours as instructors, i.e., you get paid a fixed rate by a studio per hour. But often we're working 3 or 4 or 5 hours back to back. And this is why I like FreeAgent the most, because on their invoicing system, it lets you categorize billable hours by time and unit. So we're going to go into that now.
As you can see, I've pre-done this invoice with my dream rate. That's not actually what I get paid. Don't be going asking your studios for that. And at the top left, can you see that I put in 3 hours? And then there's a drop-down menu. So if I wanted to change it to days, weeks, units, whatever, then I can. So instead of individually having to list each class or do the maths myself, I can do it on the app. And this was like a game changer for me because it's going to save me so much time. I didn't actually connect my bank here because I didn't want everyone seeing my bank accounts, but just to run you through the rest of it, if I had my bank account connected, then it would show all of that, and it's got like little reminders of what us freelancers need to know, so things like our self-assessments.
The final one we're going to talk about is Coconut, definitely way less heard of, and it was my runner-up. It is designed specifically for sole traders and freelancers, and I really liked the interface. It was so simple, and we're going to have a look at it now. So the fact that it doesn't have loads of accounting features is actually a pro for me because we don't need them. And don't forget, you can always switch softwares later. I'm not saying that you should count on that because it is effort to switch it over, but it's not that you are committed for life if you really need to change. So Coconut was my runner-up. I really liked it, and it is a little bit cheaper. So it's about £60 cheaper than FreeAgent per year. Per month, I don't think it's a massive issue. None of the ones listed today are more than £20 a month for something that is not only a legal requirement, but over time, it is going to save you time and energy.
Okay, so since filming, I think I'm leaning more towards Coconut just because it is so simple. So as you can see, I've gone on the bookkeeping and the receipts. There's not like loads of faffy buttons. It is just one thing per thing. You can upload the receipts digitally or through the app. I haven't obviously connected my banks, but that's where your bank feeds would show. And then if you create a contact, that's who you're going to send your invoices to. Of course, it doesn't have the billable hours, and I couldn't make an invoice here without sharing personal details. So I thought I'd just show you the format though. But Coconut is by far the simplest. And then FreeAgent, it is also pretty simple, and it has a few extra features that we as freelancers in our world can use. So now it's kind of more of a toss-up for me. What's more important to you, simplicity or having the extra features?
Well, some people will continue to use their spreadsheets. I don't know if this is really optimistic if I'm also having to categorize. The reason being, though, is for your own budgeting, separating your personal and your business finances, not to mention should you change later, should something happen to the information, it is going to be in your benefit to have that written down somewhere. But I will be using this as more of a personal budgeting tracker rather than my tax sheet. Now, if you are worried about categorizing your business and your personal expenses, there are a couple of things you can do to make this easier. One of them being opening a business account. This is completely up to you. I do have a business account, but I don't use it. I just track everything in the same current account, and then I have separate savings and credit accounts. Again, I will come back to the fact that our expenses aren't that complicated compared to many, if not most, other businesses. We don't have employees. We are not earning millions of pounds. We do not require buildings or venues. We are not in charge of that for our business. We don't have lots of equipment, none of that. So expenses are any equipment, educations, commuting, travel. You can actually deduct things like coffee and tea and anything that you have whilst you're working and you're out and about. It qualifies as sustenance during qualifying business travel. Other things that can make it easier are to record your expenses regularly. Of course, the software is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting there for you. But if you check it weekly or bi-weekly and just categorize anything that hasn't been categorized, it will take you 20 minutes as opposed to hours and hours if you send it to the end of the year. I know all of this sounds intimidating. It's not as bad as it sounds. It is supposed to be actually something quite helpful for us long term. If you do have any more questions, I do have other videos on this. I also have Instagram posts about it, and I am also very responsive on Instagram. So if you do want to follow me, just follow Lauren Chapel-Howell. Please write me a message. I will get back to you as soon as I see it. I do check my requests as well. Also, for more helpful videos like this, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.